So this is my opportunity to be sort of the representative of SciNet. So the first thing to ask is what's SciNet? And so we're an HPC center or an HPC consortium based at the University of Toronto, but we also have an affiliation with many of the research hospitals in Toronto. And what we do is we run massive parallel machines, but we do this not just for the Torontonians. We do this for all Canadian researchers. Anybody can get time on our machine. That's not all we do. We also do a fair bit of training, and in fact, that's one of the things where we make the most impact, just from the sheer numbers. So here's a picture of our latest machine. Came online April last year, Niagara. I'll talk a little bit more about that. This is our last local summer school. So we do a similar summer school as this one, but since it's local, people can come and pick and choose, and we had over 200 people coming to this one. They don't all show up for the picture, unfortunately. But okay. Just on this slide is also the link to our main page and to all our courses. All our courses and training we do, we put all the material online. You don't have to be either a user or even logged in to see these things. They're all there for you to use, and many of the courses are recorded as well. Okay, so we've been around for a while. We started operating in about 2008 after some planning, and we've had fairly nice machines in the past. We had really horrible naming schemes though. So we had this machine called TCS, tightly coupled system. Those nodes were tightly coupled. We had another machine, GPC, General Purpose Cluster. We had no imagination. We bought a Blue Gene Q, and we called it BGQ. We got a little bit better recently. So our latest machine, all of these are now retired anyway, is Niagara. Niagara has about 60,000 cores, has a measured performance Limpex score of 3 petaflop. That put it on the number 53 spot on the top 500 when they were first switched on. It's still number 69, so it's pretty fast for a pure CPU machine of moderate size. What runs on these things are a variety of research. Here too, we scan the whole gamut. So from astronomy to forestry to bioinformatics. Material science, it's all there. One of the things that is different from Exceed and Praise is that the Canadian national systems have to cater not just to the large-scale computations, but also to anything that's sort of moderate and does not fit on your laptop anymore. And that will reflect the kind of machines that we have. But it makes for a very broad and kind of nice selection of science that I see come by. And so as I said, we do a fair bit of training and education. That's partly because we're a fairly small group. We're 14 people at SciNet. About 6 of us are user support, and we have a few hundred users that are active at any time. That's a bit hard to support. So we figured out if we teach people how to use the system, they don't come back with questions to us, so that's fantastic. This seems to have worked very well and is very popular. So the graph here is not too clear, but it is counting how many people attended our courses in the course of time. And one thing that I did in this graph is so that we've now almost 10,000, if I extrapolate to today, 10,000 core, attendee hours. So never mind the units. The red curve, so the lower bar here is how much of that is spent on data science. So machine learning, artificial intelligence, but also just dealing with data is a highly growing portion of what we teach. And it again underlines this idea that HPC and data science are really just coming together. Topics that we do, parallel programming, that was our usual bread and butter. Scientific computing, which actually turned into a graduate course in the physics department at U of T. Data science, which turned into a graduate course in the Institute of Medical Science, and one at one of our campuses as well. but also just Python, R, C++, stuff that people have to know. A good bit of software engineering, some visualization, basically anything that we find people want to know and that we can share. Okay, so SciNet is not the only HPC center in Canada. There's about 6 of us that run systems as a national service, and that any Canadian researcher or their collaborators can use. SciNet is in the east, in the Atlantic. That's the Atlantic. Calcul, Quebec, West Grid, which are the western provinces of Canada, SharkNet and CEC, which are sister consortia in Ontario. Those are then sort of coordinated by what's called currently the Compute Canada Federation. Since any Canadian researcher can access the system, something has to be done to coordinate that. So that's Compute Canada. It has 35 institutions, the universities, and it provides it regulates the access to these systems to some extent. These are the systems that are currently available. There's not that many, but they're fairly sizable. So there's Cedar and Graham and Beluga. The top ones are all what we call general purpose clusters, not the old GPC. In this case, they are generalizations, I guess. These are the ones that have quite a few cores, a good bit of GPUs. What they don't have typically is very fast networks, like interconnects. So this is done, these are for moderate size calculations, but as I said, we are servicing not just the high performance computing part, we service basically any research that has to be done at scale, even if it doesn't need more than a node. So this serves a need. People can do a lot of science on these general purpose machines. There's a smaller cloud that I think is meant to be growing, where people can make portals and stuff like that. And then there's our system, Niagara. Niagara is meant for large parallel codes. It has quite a few cores, but what sets it aside and why it can scale is that it has a really good interconnect. It has a Dragonfly InfiniBand network, for those of you for which that means something. And so that's, if you want to do anything at scale, you go at Niagara. You might be surprised in that Niagara has no GPUs, because doesn't every modern supercomputer have GPUs these days? This actually came about purely by asking the researchers when we were planning Niagara, what do you need to run the best and the most science possible? And what kind of applications do you run? And so they told us what they run, and they told us what they need. And very few actually want GPUs because it's going to take them a few years to port. Now, that's not a great thing, but it is the reality at that time. So what that means is we had to buy something that had mostly CPUs, or all CPUs, and we have to do more training. So the fact that you guys are here, and if you're interested in GPU programming, just because we don't have any, that's not a reason not to go there. We need more GPU programming training so that people can use the GPUs, and we can buy something that is actually more powerful once you know how to program it. Okay, so finally, if you are a Canadian, you're affiliated with a Canadian researcher, or you collaborate with one, you can have access to these systems. That goes through the Compute Canada system, so you have to get a Compute Canada account. These slides are on the Moodle, but just if you want to know, it's all free to researchers. So it's already paid through the grant that we have to buy these systems and to maintain them. So it's completely free to researchers, but they do have to get an account. If they get an account, you can start running, but you run at lower priority. And so if you need dedicated, not so much dedicated, but if you need more resources, what we can do is give you priority in the queue. We can't do that willy-nilly. We have to have some sort of coordinated way to do that because there's way more demand than there is supply. And so we have an annual resource allocation competition where people submit a proposal saying, I need so many core hours or so many GPUs, so many CPUs, and they have to motivate that. Then there's a science score as well as a technical score, and based on that, they get either all or a fraction of what they ask for. So that's how you get a more sizable contribution. So that's how we operate. Finally, if you want to know more, if you have support, you can either contact Compute Canada or us personally. But what I'll do is I'll put the actual links. These are your best starting points. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ramses, for your presentation.